9-hole scramble with a shotgun start at 5:15. For information, check out Shootout in the Events tab at zone1150.com. I'm Chelsea Reber for the Zone 1150 AM and 93.7 FM.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring is prime home buying season. So if you're thinking about buying a home, right now is the time to lock a low rate, which can save you money every month on your new mortgage. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
The Brazos Valley Rehabilitation Center, celebrating 60 years of helping our community, and presenting sponsor Davis & Davis Lawyers invite you to the 10th annual Power of the Purse on April 26th at 6 p.m. at the College Station Hilton. This fun-filled event features a silent and live auction, champagne toast, and light dinner. All funds raised are used to provide charitable care through physical, occupational, and speech therapy services to all in need. Visit popbcs.com. See you April 26th for Power of the Purse 2019.
Join Save Our Streets Ministries for its 3rd annual Sweets for the Soul Pastor Cook-Off, sponsored by Stylecraft Builders and KBTX Media on May 7th at 7 p.m. For 26 years, SOS has invested in lives to rescue, restore, and release families from a drug and gang-infested environment where abuse, poverty, and violence are a way of life.
I'm not called to everybody, but I'm called to somebody. We're all called to somebody.
Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Call 775-5357 or go to SaveOurStreetsMinistries.org for ticket information. Help us save our streets.
Become a Facebook friend and get even more. More of the Zone. More of the Zone. Like us on Facebook at Zone 1150. 1150.
Good afternoon, Bryan College Station. Welcome to the Beliucci Hour lunch live on Sports Radio 1150 The Zone 102.7 FM. I'm your host, Ryan Brauninger. We are at the Tap on Harvey Road, as we are each and every Monday and Thursday, to talk all things Texas A&M sports and athletics. Coming off a busy weekend in Bryan College Station with not only Ring Day, Parents Weekend, home baseball series, spring game, home softball series. I think tennis was at home. A lot of recruiting happening on campus, visitors in from about Friday through yesterday evening. And then certainly Buzz Williams making his impact on the recruiting trail. So a lot of stuff to get to. If you're driving around, want to come hang out with us and check out the Tab's great lunch menu, come see us today. And $8.49 burger basket specials up and down the menu. And don't forget tonight here, karaoke, and on Wednesday nights, piano bar, Tuesdays and Fridays. Starting at 6 p.m. here at the Tap, they have crawfish. I think a lot of people were captivated yesterday. At least I was getting a ton of text about the Masters, and we've seen nothing but Tiger Woods' faces all over TV and all over sports media and social media in the last day or so, people calling it the greatest comeback of all time. I think that's a little bit romanticized. I get that he hasn't won a major championship in over a decade, and he had, the addiction problems and the sex scandal, and he's been through a lot. But to call this the greatest comeback of all time in sports, I think it's a little heavy-handed. I think it's a little romanticized because it is Tiger, the greatest that sport has ever seen, and one of the biggest ambassadors for any sport of all time. I think he's carried the mantle for golf and since the turn of the century, and I don't think there's any question about that. He's one of the bigger faces in sports. So I don't know if we would be saying the same thing about LeBron James in basketball, or Peyton Manning in football, or whoever you want to say, guys that are at the top tier, upper echelon of their sports, them winning a championship. I don't know that I would call that the greatest comeback of all time. It's certainly a really cool story. And captivated America. You saw the galleries as he was approaching those final 2 or 3 holes there at Augusta National were just insane, and the atmosphere there was almost like a college football game. So really cool day in golf. I don't watch a lot of golf, but when Tiger's playing for a major championship for the first time in a decade, I'm going to tune in and I'm going to watch. So it was cool to see, and I'm sure Liucci will have some thoughts on that as he was we were talking about that on the phone a little bit yesterday. Aggie baseball takes 2 out of 3 at home against Auburn. John Doxakis gets them off to a great start on Friday night. They win 4-0, shut out the Auburn Tigers, who come in as the number 19th ranked team. And Saturday, A&M follows that Friday night game up with, and you hand the ball to Asa Lacey with a chance to win the series in the first 2 days. And A&M plays probably one of their worst SEC games of the season. Dropped that one 7-0, and then you have a rubber game yesterday, a very important rubber game that A&M takes 4-1 to cap off a winning weekend, and now the Aggies move into the top 10, firmly into the top 10 in the D1 baseball poll at number 7 in a dogfight amongst about 6 SEC teams. The entire SEC West, sans Alabama, right there with them. Every weekend's a grind. You saw Mizzou take 2 out of 3 against LSU. Mizzou should have swept that series in Columbia. We saw Ole Miss drop a series at home to Kentucky. Every weekend you're going to have to play in this conference, and so any weekend win is good for this ball club. And halfway through the SEC schedule, these Aggies are in a position maybe to it could go a lot of ways, but they're 9-5-1.
Very insightful for me to walk in on that one.
Well, hold on, your mic's off, so we can't.
Great insight.
Well, your mic's off. Let me see if I can get this fixed. Let's see if I can fix you.
Oh, man.
I got it.
He doesn't have the mics fixed.
Well, it's not my job to fix the mics.
He's got the mics not working. I walk in, he's like, midway through conference season, this thing could go a lot of ways.
Well, they're top of the SEC, or half a game out of the lead in the SEC West.
And a game out of 6th place in the West. Well, I get it. It's crazy.
It's just all jumbled, and it was
Big win.
That game yesterday was an enormous win. Logan Foster, 3-run home run to. It felt like a game where a 3-run home run was going to win it at some point in the game, and A&M got it when they haven't been getting that. Like I said, on Saturday they played one of their poor games in SEC play, and to bounce back like that and then set you up for a week. You're going on the road to South Carolina. Not an easy place to play, but the Gamecocks are struggling. You're on the road at Houston. Your next 6 conference games are on the road. I think A&M's only got 6 home games left in the entire season.
This sounds crazy, but
7 home games left. There's one.
This sounds crazy, but if you want to go, and here's the thing, there's a conference title there for the taking for anyone who wants it.
And as flawed as this team is, they're right there in the middle of it.
There's a conference title there for the taking for anyone who wants it. They've played 2 of, I would say maybe, have they played 3 of their? No, they've played.
They've got Arkansas, Mississippi State left.
They've probably played 2 of half of their toughest conference series in Auburn, LSU, and Vandy. Between Auburn, LSU, and Vandy, and you got Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Arkansas left. 2 of those 3 at home.
Yep.
I mean, it would be a tremendous, jump out and overachieve and go and why not go win it? I mean, it's not easy, but somebody's going to do it, and they're not going to have to be dominant in league play to do so. But I think for A&M to do that, maybe you go up and sweep South Carolina and you get a great pitching performance Friday and Saturday, and then you Sunday all of a sudden you might be looking up and go, let's grit this one out, win a damn game, and come back here and look up and you've won 5 of 6 in league. But that's how, and I'm not saying they have to do that. I think a series win out there will be tremendous, and you could still, win the conference doing that. But here's an opportunity for you, I think, if you're Rob Childress' baseball team, to go out there and come out of this weekend. If you go out there and play your best baseball, and maybe you come out saying, we got a real shot at winning this thing.
Well, through your first half of your SEC schedule, you didn't lose one series. And I know people were frustrated with that Missouri weekend, but look what Mizzou did this weekend to win the series against LSU. Should have swept them. Now they enter the top 25. I think this team is about it's a little bit ahead of what a lot of people thought they would be this year. It doesn't look like people thought it was going to look, but it's ahead of where they thought they'd be. The biggest, I was telling Scotty off the air, the most frustrating thing about this is that they go through these long stretches on offense where they don't produce anything. Mm-hmm. I think there was 12 straight innings of shutout baseball for Auburn on the weekend, and you take 2 out of 3, but that's what's frustrating is you go through these long droughts offensively where every half inning on defense is so important because just to keep you close and keep you in a game. So
they're not a great team, and you're not – I don't think anybody should be ready to start picking them to go to Omaha or anything like that.
They're great on the mound. I think we're far enough into the season to say they're exceptionally good on the mound.
Yeah.
Outside of that, and they played great defense this weekend. Braden Shoemaker with two plays
But I don't
yesterday.
think they do. I wouldn't call that a great defensive team.
Well, they're fielding 970
I don't give
plus.
a damn about the percent. I watch it. I don't think they're great. I don't think they're terrible.
970 is what every team that makes
about
runs.
Your numbers. I'm not Billy Bean over here. I'm Billy Liucci. I watch baseball.
Which makes you more qualified.
Yeah.
than an American League GM.
The guy who they made a movie about.
Your movie's coming
with Brad Pitt.
Hey, what did you?
Would Brad Pitt play me?
Right in front table. Who would play Liucci in an autobiographical film about himself?
Tipton? Write it in. Don't start yelling. We cannot. For those listening on air, y'all can't hear. Bronny says this, and the whole front table, it's like, the guys in the Muppets at the top? Who are those guys? The 2 guys in the top of the theater at the Muppets, and they're like, rah, 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 rah. And no, we got headphones on, and there's 40 people yelling out who's going to play me in a movie.
Yeah, I went back.
Write it in. I'm interested. I'm interested.
Last week, one of the front table guys
accepted.
was telling a story, and I was like, man, that sounded real loud on air. I went back and listened to it. You could hear every word he was saying. He was saying at the front table. Hey, real quick before we go to this first break, we talked about it on the phone, Luch. What did you think of Tigers Day yesterday? And the media,
You knew it was coming. If he ever won one. And I said earlier this morning, I'm not like a huge Tiger fan, but I've also never been a Tiger hater. I like him. Mm-hmm. I don't just hang. I kind of like Mickelson a little more. He seems like a little more fun. But this new Tiger, I like. I do. I like his humility. I like it. The fact how appreciative he seems of the whole thing. How he's kind of the golf, the fraternity that is the PGA Tour is kind of taking him in. He's like this elder statesman now, but he's everyone was pulling for him, and it's been a complete change. And I like seeing it, and I like seeing greatness, and I like seeing redemption stories. These things about in sports that I really love.
The greatest comeback in sports history, as it's being dubbed by a lot of people. Do you buy that?
Yeah, I do, Bronny. Here's why. I know how great he was, and I know, look, he still is. You just took raw talent. He's still what he can do in terms of hitting the golf ball. Still, it's up there with damn near anyone, right? But it's just the comeback. Yeah, it was self-inflicted, but you still have to come back from it. It'd have been like if Mike Tyson would have ever gotten back to being the greatest boxer in the world, the most unstoppable figure, but even more so because. Tiger was like a legend of all time, and I just think, I think the comeback from where he was, it is the best I've ever seen in my probably 35 plus years of remembering sports.
I think if it wasn't Tiger, if it was Matt Kuchar who hadn't done it in 10 years, I get it. But
if Matt Kuchar would have been the best golfer in the world and one of the 2 best in history, and then fell off to the point where a lot of people didn't even think, A, would he ever even golf again, B, would he ever even contend in a tournament, and it was injury-related. A guy, how many back surgeries has he had, knee?
No, that's the cool part, was coming back from the back.
And it was self-inflicted, too. It's like what he did to himself in his personal life and how it derailed and destroyed him So yeah, what it's not Matt Kuchar. It's the greatest golfer. It would be like if that happened to Tom Brady or Derek Jeter but not even. I mean, Tiger's bigger than that. It'd be like if it happened to Michael Jordan,
LeBron,
yeah.
I agree. I mean, I wasn't trying to demean what he did or accomplish.
I know
you hear it so much, the greatest comeback. I'm like, man, this guy's been great his whole life. So, all right, on the other side,
but you don't think you see that's the interesting thing. You say that because we've grown up with Tiger being great, and we say, well, that's his whole life. But it's like how many years now is it? Like
10.
Over 10 years where he hasn't been close to great, and he's had to. In the sport of golf, it's so competitive. You know, he's had to. Literally, we've watched him painfully just eke his way back over a several-year period. So I think it was cool. I'm not even a golf guy with my Masters hat on.
On the other side of the break, we'll get to this Ames spring game
over there,
and
just
some recruiting
waiting
stuff.
to talk about Arkansas's spring game.
It's the Beliucci Hour lunch live on the Zone. Welcome back to the Beliucci Hour lunch, live on Sports Radio 1150 The Zone, 93.7 FM. Ryan Brauninger, Beliucci with you from here at the Tap on Harvey Road is biggest talking point for a lot of Aggie fans, and the reason why, especially some of the new players. And some guys that we had questions about, I thought played well. I thought, Clifford Chapman has found a role. He found a spot that maybe fit what he does the best in the box and, playing that nickel spot. And I thought Zach Calzada looked good. Just some guys that really stood out for you.
If I'm going down a list.
And Kellen played good.
Kellen played very good. Kellen, Calzada, impressed. More so just kind of how he ran things and some of the throws he made than if you looked at a stat sheet. Gabe tried to throw the stat sheet in front of me this morning. I ripped it up. I have no desire to look at that.
You did that in the first segment, too.
Watch the game. That's right.
You don't need stats.
You watch the games, okay? And I watched that game, and I don't need to go look at stats. And I'll say Kellen Mond, Zach Calzada, Baylor Cupp, Glenn Beal.
Glenn Beal's gotten big, man. Big dude.
BK. I mean, the expected guys. And then, then you see, like, Chapman, Moses Reynolds made a couple picks. But
you got to give him another number.
Oh, we were talking about that, too. Hey, that just tells you he's a great athlete. But Chapman, even more than just the pick, made some play. I thought the pick was probably one of the easier. Like that was like Kellen's bad throw of the deal where he didn't need to throw that. But who else? I did not say the running backs, Caboti and Prince, which is interesting because they needed that. Guys like them and Chapman, him and Ronnie Elam, they needed to have good springs, and you can cap those with good games because there are other guys coming in. They're going to be pushed. In the case of Caboti and Prince, I would contend that before the Vernon Jackson injury, my top three from what I'd seen in her would have been Richardson, Vernon, and obviously Corbin. And then you got Isaiah Spiller coming in. So, therefore, those two guys, it's a very important spring. And look how they performed. Here's what Saturday night is. It's a practice.
Yeah.
It's 1 out of 15. And it's less important, in my opinion, than the actual scrimmages they have. He's taking a beating right now. It's less important than the actual scrimmages they have because it's like split squad, and the only thing is you do like to see how guys perform when the lights are on. But those Caboti had a good last few practices. Prince is a guy that caught Jimbo's attention during the offseason. You got Clifford Chapman kind of took over that role midway through, and it was like him and Ronnie Elam kind of rotating. And they need that because you're bringing in 4 new DBs. Mike Elko can fit somebody in that spot if he has to. He could spin down a guy like Tucker. He could put an Eric Young there. He could. They could put another corner. I mean, there's plenty of options there. So for Chapman to cap off, I think a solid spring with that play. Elam started spring strong. So, there's some – these guys needed to perform, and it was good to see some of them do just that.
Maybe the best thing that came out of that game was that you're injury-free. I know Tyree Johnson had a little bit of a shoulder knock or something like that at the end, but he was, according to social media, smiling and taking pictures and signing autographs after the game, so he should be okay. I think this healthy football team, and listen, give the front table props.
Hold on. Let's backtrack that. The smiling, taking pictures, that doesn't mean anything because he could have, separated his shoulder, needs surgery or something.
Yeah, I mean, I
think he's all right.
Yeah, it didn't look like he walked off on his own power, and like I said, I think if he was
there have been more training situation there. But I do think this morning they got out of there with 15 practices, 1 serious injury. It looks like. Now, if there's another one in there, then it must be of somebody that doesn't play a lot. And it's really unfortunate, the Vernon Jackson thing. We've talked about it, but and that's
scary.
On top of it, even if it would have been even if it's like a blown out ACL, you might be like, well, they don't have him this year, but you'd be getting him back. And now that's in question, obviously, and his health is more important than anything else long term. But one significant injury, you'd like it to be 0, but it was still a pretty healthy spring.
What I'm saying is when they get these guys back that just set out for these minor bumps and bruises during the spring, this overall roster is really good. And when you forecast it out into the 2020 season, like we always talk about the schedule next year, and it's a bear. We know that. But the talent, it's undeniable that the talent on this football team is starting to be comparable, from seniors down to freshmen to the elite rosters in the SEC.
Yeah.
I just, when you watch Josh Rogers, he can play, man. And who knows how much he'll get on the field this year. But the defensive line is like the greatest example of the roster building. But I thought, it was tough to take anything out of Blumrick and Foster, but Calzada coming in is a talented kid. The depth at running back, the receiver depth. You had a guy like Jalen Preston played a ton. He was the number one player in the state coming out. And when those guys get healthy, where does he fit in?
But he had to play a ton. Well, I mean, I don't know, because where he had to play a ton was because Rogers and Courtney were out, and even Hez Jones is out. So Caleb Chapman's out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it all gets –
and you still – but like you said, you still had receivers capable of doing some things on the field despite all that.
There's what I'm saying is there's very few spots where you just say they're deficient in terms of elite depth and talent.
Yeah.
Now, offensive line, I think the talent's there. I don't know the depth's there yet. Linebacker is the one place, and if they get healthy, it looks a lot better. But I liked the way Andre White played. I think Braden White played well. Buddy showed up a lot. I liked the way the linebackers played the other night.
Yeah. I thought
Andre
White stood out to me. Like, just not like, oh, my God, he's going to be the answer right now, but just like, okay. Like you came in as a true freshman, had no clue what you're doing, and now this is where you're at 15 practices later. Okay, that's noticeable. That's encouraging. Hansford was encouraging,
Oh, yeah, and I forget about Hansford. That's a position move, so it's essentially another new body in that linebacker room, and you'll get a lot more in the summer.
There's a long way to go there, though.
It's really encouraging.
Yeah, encouraging.
The outlook looks better than it did coming off of last season when Otaro and Tyrell announced they were going to leave. And that's a credit to Bradley Del Pivito getting those guys ready to play, and he's going to have a lot of work to do this summer. What did you think of
here's the thing, and I was actually talking to RC last night. We ran into him out at dinner, and we were talking about not about this A&M team, but his A&M teams. Football and defense. It was fun. Matt Baumgardner was with me, and he was talking to – it's fun to see those guys talk to Coach Slocum as a kid and not a coach anymore. Not as a kid, but as like, hey, Coach, now all the life lessons you taught us, it's like I have to be damned if not every few times a year I think and remember what you told me that I never thought I'd use, but he was talking about defenses and how RC was just talking about his defense and how he just the number one thing he always kind of fell back on and made sure they hung their hat on was speed. Speed on all three levels, speed at every position. He recruited at a level that he didn't have to sacrifice size for speed like the Big 12 does. He had big guys that could run, but they always could run. And so one thing that worries me a little about, like if you look at linebacker and safety, I worry about are they going to have enough speed on the back seven, particularly at linebacker and safety. But there's so much shuffle. It might be Buddy Johnson, Anthony Hines, and Leon and one of the true freshmen at safety or something, and that could be plenty of speed. Elijah Blades and Renfro or Miles, there's just so much that can happen. Yeah, there's so much that can happen.
Yeah, on the other side of the break, we'll flip it and look at the offensive line. You listen to Beliucci Hour Lunch live on the Zone. Third segment of the show, Ryan Brauninger, Beliucci with you. Beliucci Hour Lunch live on Sports Radio 1150 The Zone, 93.7 FM. It's my first time on air since this past weekend, so I want to give a quick shout-out and thoughts and prayers out to the folks in Franklin, Texas, up the road here from College Station. Seeing the scenes and just hearing some stories from folks up there, it was a bad deal, and I think I know a lot of people are misplaced out of their homes, and they're having to open shelters up there, and it was really scary on Saturday. We're talking about triage centers in town, and I do a lot of baseball stuff in Franklin. They have one of the nicest baseball facilities in the country up there. But I also coach and interact with a lot of families from Franklin, and just always great people, so friendly, open up their homes anytime they need it, anything you need. So thoughts and prayers to the folks down the road in Franklin. Hopefully
we check on Dusty and Elisa, the Dusterhoffs over here too at KZNE. I didn't even, until you were saying that, think that they live up there in Franklin too. Thank God no one was, no one lost their life, because that was a serious. There are funnel clouds and there are tornado warnings when there aren't tornadoes on the ground, and that's for that very reason, so people can be prepared and take that stuff seriously. And that was the real deal. That wasn't some. That was a pretty destructive storm. And
knowing the folks there, they'll bounce back.
Thank God no one lost their life.
How about your before we go back to the spring game? Astros 3 sweeps in a row on the road in Seattle.
Yeah.
I mean, your boys are playing well, Luch. Thank God the Yankees came in the middle of that to give them a little boost.
Dusterhoffs are okay, no damage. I
okay.
Got the text from Scott after Steve ran him off. Go ahead, Astros. Man. They're off to a great start, playing great baseball.
That first road trip was rough, but you knew they were.
Yeah, they're going to sustain it too.
Yeah.
They're going to be there at the end, and it's just a question of, I think, for them. Do they win the AL or do they win the World Series? I think they're going to be one of the 4 teams left standing, and it just, as you know, there's so much that goes into that. More than anything else, it's probably keeping
healthy,
the arms healthy as much as anything, and then the second part of that becomes, who's peaking at the right time.
I thought it was one of the more interesting things that happened yesterday on social media, or was it? It was Saturday. A&M football recruiting took the forefront of all of our coverage for the majority of the weekend, but then Buzz Williams tweets out that, he got 4 commitments in about a span of 30, 45 minutes, Luch.
Yeah.
What a start for the new Aggie basketball coach on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, it's a tremendous start. He's getting the guys he wants. Look, he had those guys, a lot of them, at West Virginia. He was targeting, Virginia Tech. He was targeting them at Virginia Tech. And thought he could build a team that could win in the ACC with that group of players. And why, if you think you can win the ACC with that group of players, why do you not think you can win the SEC with that group of players? And those are the guys he believes in, and they believe in him clearly to make the switch. And then in the case of like Cassius McNeely, to come reclassify and come be a part of it as quickly as he can.
2 of the 4 were international, right? And the Turkish kid, easy.
Yep. And he was a Vatech. He was, enfolded at Virginia Tech. And so I love the fact, again, that he believes in them, they believe in him. You look, when A&M, when Mark Turgeon got here, he kept DeAndre, BJ, Walk Up, whatever. They didn't go. It's just it's not easy to get those guys to come here and not open it up and go elsewhere or stick at Virginia Tech.
Any more info on Admon?
In other words, it was the coach more than it was where they were going. They wanted to play for Buzz Williams, and that tells you about the personal relationship he and his staff have with those guys.
Any more update on Admon?
No, not yet, but if you want to hear that, I talked at length about it this morning, but I just think nothing yet. But, if you made me, make my prediction, I think they had a lot to overcome upon arriving here. Mm-hmm. I think there was 1 foot out the door in that situation, and they're trying to pull that back in. But, again, I think Admon's could play a huge
piece.
role.
Yeah, it's a big piece.
But it's not. But it's also not the end of the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, they want him, and it'd be great to keep him because I do think it will equal more wins in year one.
Well, I think he
can.
It could equal a tourney win if you get in there because of his experience and the way he plays.
Yeah, I mean, he's a terrific player. I mean, you're talking about probably a top 15, 20 player all time, probably top 20 player all time at A&M. Which is why you'd love to see him finish his career at A&M as well. But that's up to him. I think Buzz Williams and his staff have done what they need to do in terms of making it clear to him that he has a spot, he has a role. They'd love for him to be here. And then it's up to him. And if he makes a decision that he doesn't, then the train's going to roll on. I would just love to see him be a part of it because he's been a part of so much already. And I think he could have a unique place in A&M basketball history if he were to be, here for the 2 Sweet 16s under Kennedy and an SEC title, and then be a part of, like, maybe a surprising first year of the Buzz Williams era that they used to build on. It's a lot. Gabe made the point this morning. It was a good one when I was saying this. It's a lot like what Travion Williams will be remembered for at A&M.
Yep.
Although, really, they didn't accomplish as much in football, I don't think, as
not yet,
actually as Admon had in baseball. I mean, in basketball.
Well, you mentioned Admon's unique history. Another guy with a unique history that played on Saturday night for A&M is Luke Matthews at center, and I thought that was something that we had wanted to see, maybe as fans and as analysts, and he hadn't been there for very long. What did you think of the way Luke played, and then is he a projectable? I mean, because Ryan McCullum had a great spring ball. It counts. One's MVP, right?
Yeah, but I still think Ryan McCullum can be one of your starting guards if he has to, and then if Luke can be your starting center. I think the only issue for McCullum has been snaps, which is a big issue. And McCoy, I was actually talking to him during the spring game. He dealt with that a lot, for his first couple years at A&M. So I like the move of Luke. I think I could certainly see a world where it goes Luke at center, Ryan at guard, and then with probably Hawker, if not somebody else over there. But, or Ryan McCollum be your starting center. He can handle either. So it's a good
Kenyon
problem.
Green's coming.
Yeah, he is. And it's a good issue to have. But I think Luke's position ultimately is going to be at center. I like the idea of moving him now and seeing what he can do after one fall.
Yeah, if he's not ready to go in the fall, at least he's your backup, and then if something happens, it gives you much more flexibility where you're not moving a traditional guard. Like last year, you had to move McCollum to center after playing guard for so long. I thought the offensive line played pretty well. They're up against it, man. Like, that defensive line, you saw what was the most improved was Peavy and Bobby Brown. And
then you got the first rounder that was the defensive MVP.
Yeah.
So it's like littered with not even D linemen, but interior defensive linemen.
And they just keep rolling guys out. And R.J. Arabo, enormous.
Yeah, he's big.
On the edge. And Jeremiah Martin and Tyree Johnson. Tyree Wilson didn't play, but you see him walking around, you're like, oh, my gosh.
DeMarvin Leal.
Yeah, dude, it's great. So the offensive line being up against that type of front, I thought they played pretty well.
Honestly, Brownie,
and I got
to be honest, I didn't evaluate spring game O-line play. I'll be honest. I know there wasn't havoc wreaked in the A&M backfield.
There wasn't
that's
Deneric ran well. Cabote ran well.
Mm-hmm. I didn't evaluate. I haven't gone back and watched. And I actually will go back at some point and kind of watch the O-linemen. But when you're going to put a O-line out there and then you're going to split them in half, I'm not going to really – I'll put it this way. That's going to be the last thing I look at, so I'll revisit it. But I think, it would be one thing, like, if you couldn't conduct a damn scrimmage because the D linemen were in the backfield 3 yards on every play, and that certainly was not the case.
I thought it was cool how you saw Baylor Cupp grow into the game. He had the strip fumble, and then he had one more drop before that. But then it's like you could tell, especially after the touchdown throw from Calzada, he really started coming into his own. Man, he's such a –
That strip fumble, by the way, was a terrific play by Leon, and then he lost it back.
He was carrying it like –
Which I think hopefully that was because he knew that they were blowing the play was over or something. But that would have been a terrible turnover in a game. But the forced one I mean, that was a really good play by him. That's what you're supposed to do towards the end of a play, and that was a good learning experience for Cup. Cup and Beal, 10 catches for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. Those are Jace's numbers from the spring game last year.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to be this year. It's going to be those two and Weidemeyer, and you hope they put up similar numbers to what Jace did.
When you go back and look
by
at
himself, those three combined is what I'm saying.
Yeah, Billy Bean, recreating in the aggregate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just like I said. Didn't even have to
when you go back and you watch the offensive line, watch Baylor block. I didn't watch him block. We know Glenn Beal's a really good blocker.
Yeah,
but
he is.
Interested to see how, did Baylor ever have some one-on-ones with some of those edge guys where he was able to hold his own?
Yeah.
His high school film was so much fun to watch in the run block and stuff. So I would imagine that if he's not there yet, and he probably isn't, but it's not going to take long.
No.
But I thought that, that'll be a good, when you sit down and watch that'll be a good kind of early measurement of the two new coaches on the offensive staff.
Yeah. I think it will. I mean,
especially look at the depth,
I think it's hard.
The second group of offensive linemen, and see what you've got there. Tank Jenkins, Barton Clement, Colton Blanton. I saw Blanton was playing inside and out. And I've heard from some team sources that Henson, that's a guy Henson really likes and likes his future. So, guy was a kid that came out of high school at 6'7". Now he's 6'8", and he's still not a lot of hair on his face.
Yeah, he's still growing into it all.
On the other side of the break, we'll close the show with your question from here at the tab. You're listening to Beliucci Hour Lunch live on the Zone.
Find out the latest contest.
Final segment of the show. Ryan Brauninger, Beliucci with you here at the Tap on Harvey Road.
ZZ Top.
No, we can't have regular music. That's all stock music now because we're live streaming.
Oh, yeah.
If you're joining us via
brilliant
YouTube.
show improvement there, wasn't it? Jesus.
Are you so
Let's
negative,
go
man?
live stream and ruin the music.
What is
You mean negative? I'm sorry if I just have an opinion on what I think about something.
Well, you do. You have an opinion about everything.
It doesn't have to be negative.
That's what makes you who you are.
It could be positive, but this one happens to be negative.
Questions from here at the Tap.
Right?
Surprised by the lack of public commitments for football this weekend or expected due to the game moving?
I don't think we were expecting, but
I was expecting one.
One, maybe two. And I think we said exactly what we said was we were expecting one, and then I followed that up by saying I could see a couple coming in the ensuing couple of weeks as a result of that.
I could see almost a handful in the coming weeks. I mean, the gauge of it can't be by public, and like they did some really, really good things with some of their top end targets.
Yeah, and you always want the turnout to be better, and I do think I'll say this, moving the game and stuff. I do think there was something about something in the chain of promoting it. They got to do something a little different, I think, and I don't know what it is. So I'm not sitting here pretending to have the answers. I don't know if the ring day home baseball game and all that stuff helps attendance or hurts. And this year, when could you have done it? You can't do it Easter weekend. You're not going to get the turnout you want. If you do it the weekend before, it's Chili Fest, and are you going to move spring ball up or whatever? I don't know that and I think, so my point is this year I think they had to have it this weekend, and then moving it because of the weather hurt. I don't know that I think that but then if you have it the weekend after Parents' Weekend and Ring Day, then a ton of people are going to say, hey, I'm not going to go. I was just there.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you have to, but I don't know if it really helps. And then somebody will say, well, if they wouldn't have moved the game, it was staggered perfectly because Ring Day, Friday.
You had to move the game.
But
you had a tornado 30 miles up the road.
I'm not worried about that.
It could have been right here.
Yeah, and you had to move the game.
Yeah.
No question. I'm just saying this, and that's what I'm saying. People are going to come at me with you had to move the game. Well, no crap. I'm not an idiot. I know that. People are going to come at me with if you wouldn't have moved it, if you wouldn't have had to move it, it would have been, right after baseball or whatever it was going to be, right before it all fit in. Well, no crap. I get that too. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, I can't measure for you, but if you're honest with yourself, it seemed like there was more buzz over like spring games